Hello and welcome to Ewtn Pro-Life Weekly, your weekly dose of the top pro-life news and issues, all from a Catholic perspective. I'm Kathryn Hydro in our Washington, D.C. studio. Thanks for joining us. In this week's show, the new Gerber baby sends a pro-life message. A new book makes powerful pro-life arguments in a very approachable way, and this.
The life issue of the unborn, that is going to have an importance, a greater importance, a more central importance.
Father Paul Scalia offers spiritual insight on the topic of abortion, and never before aired footage from our interview. But first, our top story: the White House targets Planned Parenthood in the 2019 fiscal budget released this week. President Donald Trump sent Congress a proposal to spend $4.4 trillion in the 2019 budget year beginning in October. The proposal, largely political, would prohibit Health and Human Services funding from going to any clinic or facility that provides abortions. This is seen as a move to defund Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion provider. Joining us now from Capitol Hill is Senator Steve Daines of Montana. Senator, what do you make of the president's budget proposal to cut off funding to abortion providers, and how seriously do you expect Congress will consider it?
Well, I was very pleased to see that President Trump zeroed out. He defunded Planned Parenthood. They're the largest abortion provider in the United States. Over 300,000 babies lose their lives every year because of Planned Parenthood. I hope that Congress takes a serious look at that. I fully support the president. I'd like to see Planned Parenthood defunded, and we'll keep fighting for that as long as I'm up here.
It's been over a year in this administration with the pro-life Congress. Does defunding Planned Parenthood remain a top priority?
It does, and you really see a difference in the Republicans' view on that versus the Democrats. The Republicans are pretty unified that we should defund Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider in the United States, 328,000 babies a year. It is time to defund it. We need to get some of our friends across the aisle to support us in that effort. And again, anything your viewers can do to help us move some of our Democratic colleagues to support our efforts to defund Planned Parenthood once and for all.
Absolutely. And in other pro-life news, Senator, you introduced a bill just this week, the Child Tax Credit for Pregnant Moms Act. What's the difference between your legislation and the existing child tax credit?
Well, I think that pregnant mothers deserve a break. And you look at the cost of raising a child, it's over $200,000. A lot of those costs start to be borne by the mom before the baby is born. And so this gives us a chance to add another $2,000 for a tax credit for that unborn child. I think it makes sense. Pregnant moms need a break, and that's why I've introduced this legislation, and we're starting to see some good support behind it.
That's great to hear. You know, between the budget proposal and now, Senator, your child tax credit bill, how do you see money really playing a role in advancing the pro-life cause?
Well, I think, again, whether it's defunding Planned Parenthood, whether it's providing a tax credit for the unborn child, or passing the Pain Capable Act, these are all the fights that we're taking at Capitol Hill every day. I got to tell you, I was disappointed we didn't see more support for a very important bill, and that was the Pain Capable, which would stop abortions at 20 weeks or greater. We should stop all abortions. But a good place to start to get bipartisan support would be stopping late-term abortions at 20 weeks or greater. That's 5 months. We ought to be able to get at least 60 votes in the U.S. Senate. Unfortunately, many of my Democratic colleagues, most of them, voted against it. Again, we need the people of our country to yell loudly at their leaders in Washington. It's time to pass the Pain Capable bill.
Absolutely. Senator Steve Daines of Montana, thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
For further reaction and analysis, we're joined now by our trusted pro-life expert. Autumn Christensen is the policy director for the Susan B. Anthony list. She was previously the director of the Congressional Pro-Life Caucus in the House of Representatives for over a decade. Welcome back, Autumn. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
What do you make of this White House budget proposal? Is this a path forward to defunding Planned Parenthood?
Sure. So this administration, when the president was a candidate, made a commitment that he would cut off funding to Planned Parenthood, and this is really a good step towards reaching that goal.
Do you think Congress will take these suggestions seriously?
Yes. Well, it's this ongoing challenge. The House has consistently included language to cut off funding to the largest abortion provider, Planned Parenthood, but they just keep running up against that supermajority requirement in the Senate for spending bills, and that's likely to be what happens again this go round. We certainly will be working to try to convince senators otherwise, but that tends to be the challenge.
And see what happens. The proposal would prohibit HHS department funding from going to abortion providers. What other pro-life strides have we seen come from HHS so far?
Right. So despite of the difficulties on Capitol Hill, we've been really pleased to see that this administration has taken every step that they can to try to cut off that funding through administrative means. So one example of that is rescinding an Obama-era regulation that would have it told all states that they couldn't cut Planned Parenthood out of their Medicaid program. And this administration said, we're going to pull back that guidance and we're going to tell you, you make that choice.
So even though at the federal level we haven't defunded Planned Parenthood, this is at the state level. States can do this.
Exactly, offering more flexibility to states.
It's been a little over a year now that the Trump administration has been in office. How have pro-lifers working at various levels in the government, how have they been treated and received?
Well, it's so important that each president, as they come in, appoints people to represent their policy goals within their administration. And we have seen, especially in this week and in the past couple of weeks, this really huge attack on pro-life staffers within the administration. So even to the extent of it looking like some pro-abortion members of Congress want to disqualify pro-life people from government service and public service, which would be a real tragedy. We need people who respect life working within the administration, and that respect for life will translate to good work in many, many areas.
Absolutely, and pro-lifers cannot be discriminated against at any level. Autumn Christensen of the Susan B. Anthony List, thank you for your insight on all of this.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
In each week's call to action, we share the best way for us to come together as pro-lifers so our voice is heard, an action that will be the most effective based on each week's unique needs. This week, we need to send a message of gratitude and thanks to the administration. Tell the Trump administration thank you for the many strong pro-life appointments in key government positions. Type in prolifeweekly.com into your internet browser. That is prolifeweekly.com. You'll be able to send your thank you message from this website. There are highly qualified public servants who are pro-life working in multiple levels in the government right now. From the White House to the Department of Health and Human Services and other agencies, the list goes on. By placing people with strong pro-life beliefs in these key spots, our country is better able to make strides, big and small, in fighting for the dignity of every human being. This is nothing to brush aside, and the Trump administration deserves a thank you. Let us acknowledge this accomplishment so we can continue to see even more pro-life appointments in the future. Once again, go to prolifeweekly.com. That's prolifeweekly.com, where you can tell the Trump administration thank you for the many key pro-life appointments so far. Turning now to more pro-life news, the U.S. bishops praise signs of progress against abortion ideology in response to a new State Department report. A February report from the U.S. State Department's Office of U.S. Foreign Assistance Resources reviews the expanded version of the Mexico City policy, a policy that directs overseas family planning funding away from groups that promote or perform abortions. The report finds the vast majority of non-governmental organizations are willing and able to comply with this policy. In response, Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the chair of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Pro-Life Activities, said U.S. tax dollars have no business going to organizations that are unwilling to pursue health outcomes for every person. I again applaud this administration for restoring our foreign assistance to its rightful goals of promoting health and human rights. For the first time in its 91-year history, Gerber picks a baby with Down syndrome to be its new spokesbaby. 1-year-old Lucas Warren's contagious smile won over executives at Gerber's baby food. His photo was chosen out of more than 140,000 submissions. He will receive $50,000, and the Georgia boy's image will be featured in the company's social media posts. Lucas's mother says she hopes this will increase the acceptance of kids with special needs. As we've reported on this program, a majority of babies diagnosed prenatally with Down syndrome are aborted. So pro-life groups are praising Gerber for this pic, saying it sends the right message. Bishop Kevin Rhodes of Fort Wayne South Bend says he strongly disagrees with the University of Notre Dame's decision to provide funding for contraception in its health insurance plans. The Catholic University is located in the bishop's diocese. Notre Dame announced last week it would stop working with a third-party administrator to provide contraceptives, and now will pay directly for a limited range of contraceptive drugs. In his statement, Bishop Rhodes said the school is now even more directly contributing to immoral behavior and said he hopes and prays the university will reconsider its decision. This story from Notre Dame only stresses the need to have faithful Catholic professors and universities who uphold and instruct church teaching. That happened to be a goal of the man who is the subject of our next interview, and whose writings are the subject of a new book. Father Francis Canavan was a professor of political science who died in 2009. But for more than 25 years, the Jesuit priest and professor contributed to the Catholic Eye newsletter. Canavan frequently wrote about the dignity of human life, and now a complete collection of his columns have been released in a new book, Fun is Not Enough. It's a book that is receiving attention from a variety of Catholic press. First Things describes the columns as answering arguments for contraception, abortion, and euthanasia with decisive blows. I recently spoke with the editor of the book, Fun is Not Enough, who said Father Canavan's writings and teachings on life had a personal and profound impact. Dr. Don Eden Goldstein is an assistant professor of dogmatic theology at Holy Apostles College and Seminary and the editor of a new book, Fun is Not Enough, a complete collection of Father Francis Canavan's writings in the Catholic Eye. Don, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Kathryn.
It's so good to have you. You were previously a rock and roll historian and writer, and you say Father Canavan changed your life. Who was he, and what does he mean to you?
Father Canavan, at the time that I met him, was approaching his 90th birthday. He was Professor Emeritus of Political Science at Fordham University. A friend of mine, for my confirmation and reception into the Catholic Church, gave me a copy of an earlier collection of some of Father Canavan's columns that had appeared in the Catholic Eye newsletter. And now I was a big fan of G.K. Chesterton. It was Chesterton's writings that helped to lead me from Judaism into Christianity and ultimately Catholicism.
Beautiful.
And when I read Father Canavan's writings, I thought this is like as if Chesterton were alive and well and living at Fordham University. I had to find this man because he wrote with such clarity against the dictatorship of relativism. I got to meet Father Canavan, and he was in person every bit as inspiring as he was in his writings. And then I started to study theology at the Dominican House of Studies with the idea that now that I was Catholic, I was going to leave the world of rock journalism and also newspaper journalism. I had been working for the New York Post and then the Daily News, and I thought I would work in campus ministry. But Father Canavan, when I shared with him a paper that I had written for my moral theology class, he told me I couldn't stop at a master's degree. I had to continue to a doctorate and teach. And the reason why he said this, Kathryn, was that he was a true mentor. He wanted to raise up a new generation of faithful Catholic professors. In this case, he wanted me to be a faithful Catholic theology professor because he said that in the wake of the Second Vatican Council, due to misunderstandings about the nature of the council, there was so much dissent in theology. But he said there were some Catholic universities that were trying to be faithful. And he said faithful Catholic universities need faithful Catholic professors.
And here you are today. You write he had a prophetic quality to him. What did Father Canavan see when it came to the pro-life issues and the culture of life?
Well, he really saw through the relativism of this contemporary culture. The very first essay in Fun is Not Enough is called On Being Personally Opposed. And he takes the case of someone, a religious sister who was working at a state job that required her to oversee funding for abortions, and she was given the choice of remaining in her religious order or keeping her job. And she kept her job because she said that, and she left the order because she said that whereas she was personally opposed to abortion, she did not believe that abortions should be denied to people because of poverty.
Which is a common argument we hear today.
It is a common argument, and Father Canavan argues forcefully that to say that one is personally opposed to abortion but wouldn't deny others abortion is simply to say, I'm really okay with abortion. I don't really see anything wrong with it. He was able to see through the inconsistency in so-called pro-choice arguments.
And I want to continue to walk through some of his writings. In 1990, on the hard abortion cases, he writes, "When we get to the end of the line and face the hard cases, we can disagree. But let's get there first. And in the meantime, stop talking as if rape and incest were the only reasons for abortion." What's he saying there?
What he's saying is that when people bring up the so-called hard cases of the woman who's been raped, the woman who's been a victim of incest, it's a distraction from the humanity of the unborn child. If the unborn child is a human being, then to kill it is murder. And the question is, you know, there's this crime that's already been committed against the mother. Are we going to make that crime, that wound that she has to live with for the rest of the life, that much better by then compounding it with murder?
I want to ask a pretty basic question about this book. It's called Fun is Not Enough. What does that mean? Why that title? And what do you hope this book can be for pro-lifers?
Well, in answer to the first part of your question, the title Fun is Not Enough comes from an essay in the book in which Father Canavan says that when we're children, the pleasure principle works for us. You know, we're happy with things that are fun, but as we mature, we discover that fun is not enough. I think that Fun is Not Enough can really help us by providing both religious but also very importantly, from Father Canavan's perspective, solid and relevant natural law arguments for the dignity of the unborn and of every human life from conception to natural death.
Dr. Don Eden Goldstein, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
When we come back.
On this vote, the yeas are 51 and the nays are 46. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to.
We name the 14 Catholic senators who recently voted against a major pro-life bill. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Kathryn Hydro. Late last month, the U.S. Senate failed to pass the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. This is a bill that would ban abortions after 5 months of pregnancy, the point at which science shows babies can feel pain, and it's a protection a majority of Americans approve. And what is a major disappointment, 14 of the senators who voted against this common sense, popular, and important pro-life bill were senators who identify as Catholic. And being that we will hold our Catholic congressmen accountable on this program, we are going to list these senators by name. Please take note. The 14 Catholic senators who voted against the pro-life pain-capable bill are Senators Maria Cantwell, Susan Collins, Dick Durbin, Kirsten Gillibrand, Heidi Heitkamp, Tim Kaine, Patrick Leahy, Ed Markey, Catherine Cortez Matzo, Claire McCaskill, Bob Menendez, Lisa Murkowski, Patty Murray, and Jack Reed. Shame on you, senators, for not using your position and public service to protect our most vulnerable. Shame on you for claiming your Catholic faith while disregarding the Church's teaching that abortion is a grave offense. The creed we Catholics profess in Mass is not to be abandoned when we walk out of the church doors. Our faith should transform us as we strive towards heaven. Our faith should touch every aspect of our lives, including our jobs, and it's a faith that includes the entirety of the Church's teachings, not parts we can pick and choose from based on what's convenient for our political agenda. Being Catholic does not fit cleanly and perfectly into one political party. We are called to be allegiant to Christ. But to be a public figure who asserts a Catholic faith and then votes against a bill that would literally save unborn lives is a slap on the face to the Church's teachings on life and a devastating attack to our most vulnerable members. As Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the chair of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Pro-Life Activities, said, the Senate's failure to pass this bill is appalling. And it is our duty to tell the Senate this is unacceptable. To the 14 Catholic senators who voted to keep late-term abortion legal in the United States, you failed us. But I pray you will reconsider your stance for the future and use your elected power to protect and defend life. Remember, you have a role in countering today's culture of death. There is always something you can do with our call to action. This week, go to prolifeweekly.com to tell the Trump administration thank you for the many pro-life appointments in key government positions. One hope we have for this show is that you, our viewers, will use the information we share to discuss the sensitive topic of abortion with your neighbors, to dialogue with your friends and family when the topic inevitably will arise. But as most of you are likely already aware, it's a topic that can be difficult to broach and navigate. That's why we asked Father Paul Scalia for his guidance on this. Father Scalia is a priest in the Diocese of Arlington in Virginia. You may recognize him because he's also the son of the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. In a portion of our sit-down interview that has not yet aired, I asked Father Scalia to share his spiritual guidance on the topic of abortion. Here's this week's Pro-Life Focus. As a priest, from your perspective, how do you see abortion and overall the culture of death really impacting society?
I think a lot of people would immediately view the Church's reaction as a political one, because that's what's in the news, right? But the Church's reaction to this is primarily pastoral. It's a care for souls and a care for lives. So it's most of all in caring for women, for pregnant women who might be tempted towards abortion, and caring for women who've had abortions and who are struggling with and suffering from the wounds that come from abortion. So the Church's, most of the Church's work is not in the public square so much as it is in the confessional, in counseling, in assisting others in those ways. As a priest, I think every priest sees the wounds of abortion and how it can harm relationships, leave deep wounds within a soul, not just of the women who've had abortions, but of the men who perhaps failed in their duties or pressured someone to have an abortion, things like that. And there's great pain and regret, and a fear that they can't be forgiven. And the Church's message is at one and the same time a strong condemnation of abortion, but an even stronger message of reconciliation for those who have participated in procuring an abortion.
As you mentioned, abortion touches so many lives. Do you have some guidance, some insight as to how we should discuss and dialogue these issues with our neighbor?
Gently. Gently, because we don't know what's beneath the surface there, right? And you know, how many women in the United States have had abortions? It's a large number, and so in our speaking about it, we really are trying to do what the church is doing and being strong in condemning what is wrong, and even stronger in reaching out and announcing reconciliation, and always saying that the reason we condemn abortion, as with any sin, as wrong, is because it harms people. It hurts God's image and likeness in this world. It hurts those whom God loves most. And that's why we speak out against it. And in this regard, the church is really striving to imitate our Lord, and every member of the church should be striving to imitate him. Our Lord was very harsh in speaking out against the Pharisees and Sadducees. Very, very gentle in reconciling tax collectors and sinners. So I think we have to have those two things in mind, and not want to compromise on the truth, but neither do we use the truth as sort of a billy club, you know, to beat people over the head with in order to get them to come along in our way. It's not primarily a political issue. It's not primarily a cultural issue. It is primarily an issue of individuals who have been misled, who've made bad decisions, or in danger of it, and who are suffering.
On this program, Ewtn Pro-Life Weekly, we are approaching life issues from a Catholic, holistic perspective. So what does it mean to be pro-life as informed by the teachings of the Church?
Right. Yeah, the word Catholic means whole and entire, means universal, and not universal in the sense of sort of like, you know, the garage where everything is just thrown in there and it's all jumbled together, but universal in the sense of everything is brought into a coherent, organic whole. And I think that's also in our approach to all of the various life issues. But as with, for example, the human body, you know, every limb is necessary to have a body whole and entire. But some limbs are more, and some organs are more important than others. Right? You can do more easily without your arm than without your heart. In a similar way, with all of the life issues, they're all important, and we don't want to neglect that. But the life issue of the unborn, that is going to have an importance, a greater importance, a more central importance, because without that, all of the others, as John Paul II said repeatedly, without that right to life, all of the others issues are threatened.
That's it for this edition of Ewtn Pro-Life Weekly. But before we go, a quick personal note. You may have noticed I have a name change, and that last week's show was a pre-taped special program. That's because I got married. My husband and I feel incredibly blessed during this time and the early stages of our new vocation. We are so grateful for all the outpouring of prayers we've received, and we hope we can count on continued prayers as we discern God's will together the rest of our lives. Know that you will be in ours. With that, I look forward to seeing you all here again next week. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.